don't know why you even watch me. Ah, shenanigans. Hi everyone. That's weird. Hello everyone, my name is Koren Wiskman and I am one of scrapbook.com's holiday gift guide ambassadors for 2019. I got to do this last year, so of course I was on board to do it again this year, letting you guys know all of the deals that scrapbook.com has for this holiday season. And this little gift guide is kind of like what they have created to inform us of the very best. It usually includes a lot of things that are really popular for 2019. So it has the foil quill pen, the foil quill magnetic mat if you guys are electronic die cutters, ooh, the glass media mat, and there are several other things in here that are just really great. I love these die cutting machines and die packages. That's really great. And ooh, these foams. I might need to order some foams this holiday season. So I am going to show you Waffle Flower's water media mat. So this water media mat from Waffle Flower, it has some wells right here on the side in order for you to put your paint supplies in. And it also has this nice kind of, the ratio, I don't know. It's a nice filming ratio. I like to give you guys a little bit more of a peek into the desktop here, but it's really cool. You could zoom in when you're doing like fine detail work. This is a pretty cool thing. It's very non-skid. Like I have other silicone mats that I've bought, but this is like, whoo, this is not going anywhere, honey. This is some non-skid. This is not going anywhere. It's also waterproof, of course, it's silicone and heat resistant. I wouldn't leave your heat tool directly on the mat for a long period of time because some of our heat tools are quite hot and you could still melt the silicone. And we don't want to do that. I can't stop touching it. I'm going to make it really dirty. I saw this at Creativation and have wanted it for a very long time, but you know, other things kind of get on the list and other things get pushed down, and I don't really do a whole lot of watercoloring, but this is motivation to start, right? We're going to start today on a cute project using some Waffle Flower supplies that you can get from scrapbook.com.
The Waffle Flower water media mat features 12 palette squares that can be used on the right or left hand side. It holds paper up to 9 by 12 inches and it can take heat up to 446 degrees. It cleans up with soap and water. You store it flat, but be careful of sharp edges. They can cut your mat. Another really cool thing that you can do with a silicone mat is open your ink up your stamp on an acrylic block, and then take it and stamp the image down on the silicone surface as clear and crisp as you possibly can, and then take the piece of paper that you're going to use to color your image on and apply it to the ink. Rub the back gently and lift the paper straight up, and you should have a mirrored image of your stamp. I'm using VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink and Waffle Flower's Cookie Time stamp set on today's project. Whenever I'm using VersaFine Clair inks, they are a pigment ink, I give them extra time to dry, or you could smudge your lined images. While I give the images a few minutes to dry, I'm taping down a piece of Nina 110-pound cardstock, and I'm going to use a small brick wall stencil and Nuvo's Expanding Mousse in Worn Linen. It's an off-white shade. This stuff is a little bit thick, but I take my Nuvo spatula and kind of move it around a little bit, and it gets a little bit more pliable. And then I apply it just to the center kind of area on my card front, and I really try to make a mess with it because we're going to use our heat tool on it and it's going to expand. I try to keep this closed up as much as possible and lift the stencil straight up. You can wait for your mousse to dry before you hit it with the heat tool, or you can do it right away like I do. As soon as my heat tool's heated, I take it straight to the expanding mousse, and I really cook this stuff and watch it expand. I think it's kind of neat, and it dries hard and not hot. I'm going to use my Distress ink cubes to watercolor my images. If you do not enjoy watching people color, you can skip ahead in the video, and that way you can avoid this boring part, I guess. I really enjoyed coloring this way. What I did was I put my Distress ink cubes in the palette wells that are designated for your watercolors, and they fit perfectly in there, and so every color has its own little home, which is kind of neat. I don't watercolor like a typical person. I love to use a blender brush. It doesn't matter what type of blender pen you're using. If it picks up ink or holds ink, you can use it with watercolor. The red really is pigmented, so my marker picked up a lot of the red ink, maybe even too much, so you have to be very sparing with your red ink. But I would really just take my blender pen, pick up a little bit of the Distress ink, and watercolor with it, starting in the darker shadowy areas of the image and drawing the watercolor out into the lighter part of the image. If you notice, I'm using a scrap piece of paper to clean off my marker when I'm switching in between colors or when I want less pigment in the marker. I wanted to stick to a Christmassy color palette, so I did choose a lot of red and green. All of my supplies will be linked below in the description box of this video. But if I remember correctly, I did end up using like a lighter shade. Say the green was Mowed Lawn and Pine Needles. So I would start with adding the Mowed Lawn, and then I would leave that for a little while and then go and add some Pine Needles to darken up the shadowy areas and add a little bit more contrast. I used different variations of tea dye for the skin. The mom's skin tone ended up being a little bit lighter than both of the kids' skin tone, but whatever. That's how my family is. But I did try to add a little bit of the red, and that's where I messed up in that one image. You can see where they're really red. Like, that's not human. The brown for the gingerbread house is actually brushed corduroy, and I really like how that turned out. It looks really cool. To keep the snow on top of the gingerbread house white, I added a little bit of black soot to add in the shadows for that, but a very small amount. All I did was color my gingerbread house, but really this opens up a lot of different things. We could use Nouveau drops to decorate the gingerbread house, or a little bit of stickles, Ranger's stickles, to like add a little bit of glimmer to the snow. There's unlimited potential for this gingerbread house. I used pumice stone for Mom's mittens and the bowl in the other little child's arms. I did take a paintbrush and some water and mix together gathered twigs and fired brick on the palette in one of the little palette spaces to kind of mix a custom hair color for one of the children, and that was pretty neat. I think that would open up a lot of different potential too for colors that you could create on your own. Don't worry, I do end up re-stamping the little sunburn kid, but I do have to tell you that I first stamped these images on non-watercolored paper, and that's not good. You want to be able to move around and use a lot of water or color or pigment, so make sure you're using watercolored paper, any kind of whatever your favorite watercolor paper is. I used gathered twigs for Mom's hair. That's closer to my natural hair color. And I just started in the shadows and then draw the color out with the blender pen into a lighter shade. And I really enjoyed coloring this way. I like having this matte, and you could leave these colors in the matte until the next time you color and just add water to rejuvenate them. I'm using the coordinating cookie time dies, also by Waffle Flower, to cut out my images. I just take a little bit of Thermoweb's purple tape, the 1/2-inch variety, and tape them down so they don't go anywhere, and run them through my Spellbinder's platinum die cutting machine, and that cuts them out perfectly for me. Well, now that I have all my images, I need a sentiment. So I'm using Lawn Fawn Black Licorice cardstock, and I'm just going to heat emboss the sentiment, but first I have to cut some of the paper down because this doesn't fit in my mini MISTI. I'm using the Cookie Time sentiment from the same Waffle Flower Cookie Time stamp set, but this time I'm going to prep my paper with an EK Success powder tool and stamp it down using Nuvo Clear Mark embossing ink. That way I can heat emboss the Cookie Time with Ranger white embossing powder. Now at this time I have my heat tool heated or heating up so that it's nice and hot when I bring it to my paper, and then I heat the back a little bit and then I melt the powder on the front. I absolutely love black and white heat embossed sentiments. I think they are an absolute classic. I'm using my Fiskars Wire Guide paper trimmer to trim down the sentiment into a thin strip to add to the card panel. I usually spend some time kind of arranging the images and the sentiment to see how I like it. I'm using some foam tape to pop up the sentiment onto my background, and I'm just using some tonic scissors to clip off the end. This is Nuvo Deluxe liquid adhesive that I'm using to adhere Mom to the brick background. The background itself is popped up with some craft foam and tear tape adhesive. Once I get all of my images popped up using some small snippets of foam tape, that's it. That's my card for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Oh, I did add some party banners in the back because now it's a party. Hey, if you like to party, especially with cookies, find me, findscrapbook.com on social media. I love to interact with you there. And until next time.